Shall I let everyone in? Are you ready?
Yeah, yeah.
It
As
needs
well. Yeah.
nearly seven. Admit all. Hello, I'm Jess from Dyspraxic Me. We'll start shortly, but we'll just wait for people to join the call. I can see I can see there's still a few people entering the call. And I'll say that we are going to record the first part of this talk. So if you don't want to be on camera, like please turn your camera off and please keep your mic off until the Q&A at the end. Okay, should we start and then I can let people in as they arrive. I'll keep an eye on the waiting room. So I'm Jess. I'm the founder of Dyspraxic Me, which is a volunteer-led charity, and we're a charity aimed at dyspraxic young adults, and we usually meet in London um, on a fortnightly basis. And at the moment, we have funding from Sports England to do regular fitness classes. Currently on a Tuesday evening in Covent Garden, which is a focus on spin. Um, and every year we also put on some events for Dyspraxia Awareness Week to raise awareness of dyspraxia, and these are welcome to everyone. We tend to do them on Zoom. So today we've got a panel talk with two guests. So we have Rosemary Richings, who is one of the trustees at Dyspraxic Me. Rosemary tends to do our social media for us. And then we also have Mike Nelson, who you may, if you came to our event last year, you might recognise Mike, who talked about fitness and dyspraxia. So I was just going to hand over to Rosemary and Mike to introduce themselves, and then we'll start the panel. Rosemary, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I am Rosemary. I was diagnosed with dyspraxia when I was only 4 years old. Along with that, I am the author of this book right here, Stumbling Through Space and Time, Living Life with Dyspraxia. I do consulting work in that area of neurodiversity resources. And as Jess mentioned, I am a trustee with Dyspraxic Me.
Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, no worries. Hi guys. So my name's Mike, and I was diagnosed with dyspraxia when I was 13 years old, going through secondary school. I'm a musician, so I like to sing, I like to play keyboard, I like to do a bit of producing, and I also do kind of like open mic nights and bits and pieces that I tend to. And yeah, as I say, with my dyspraxia, I'm doing this as part of the Dyspraxia Awareness Week.
So the first question is, so what is dyspraxia to you? So what is your definition of dyspraxia?
Do you want to do this one this week? Yeah. I would start with more the textbook definitions. So proprioception, your body's perception within your own environment's surroundings. I would talk about the subject of motor skills. So everything from team sports, arts and crafts to self-care. Although I would also preface that as well with it's usually the biggest difficulty is with things that aren't practiced enough or situations of stress is very much the issue for adult dyspraxics.
Yeah, I would say dyspraxia to me is not being able to like retain information, probably like the like Rosemary said about just like the hand-to-eye coordination and that kind of thing. Um, and also, not being able to maybe do things in the coordinational ways that someone else can, particularly like through sport, and also things like being able to learn new tasks and actually do those, um, do those fairly well compared to to a neurotypical kind of person, really. I think dyspraxia also means to me that we have to take things one step at a time and we can't be overloaded too much with information. So I think, it's important, with dyspraxia to basically, just explain it to people. So dyspraxia to me is basically, doing things in your own way.
Thank you. So the next question that we have is, what was your experience? What was your experience of dyspraxia at school, college, and university if you went to university?
Okay, well, I can take this one first of all. So my experiences of dyspraxia at school was that I was really struggling. I was put into kind of lower end groups for this, and particularly with languages. Like I was trying to work out like how to do languages and so forth. And the funny story on that one was that when I was at school, I had to learn about how to do 24-hour time um, in French or in German, and I didn't know how to do it in English. So it was really tricky for me to kind of even work out with like 24-hour clocks. So it was a lot of information to try and retain. So I was put into like lower classes, smaller group environments, and I had the support of like support assistants and so forth going through school. Um, I think my experience was that I thought that I was like not as good as anybody else, but I was able to get support, such as like using a laptop, for instance, when I was doing my exams, rather than actually being able to write it. I did find at school doing a lot of writing, even with like handwriting pens and things like that, it was very tricky, and my hands would get really tired. From doing a lot of writing, and then the upshot of that was that my writing would be very kind of lazily done and unreadable sometimes. And hence why I was able to get that support of using a laptop, really. Um, Doing things kind of socially as well was a little bit tricky, and like making friends. But once I got the right support, then my experience of school, wasn't too bad. As I say, I was diagnosed at 13, so I still had a bit of that, but I was undiagnosed. But as soon as I got diagnosed, I was getting a lot more support, particularly with my GCSEs as well.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to the point you made about messy handwriting. That was really a factor for me. I found that I learned to read and write at a slower rate than many of my peers as a result of it, because I was very much reaching for different standards, I found, and that was really the challenge. But as soon as I got into reading, as soon as I mastered it, it became my life's biggest passion. And I very much credit that with being why writing was so important for me. And I think that served as an important motivation for why I eventually went to university. And despite the fact that it took a while to find the language to describe like my dyspraxia and how I get support and what support is required and articulating that to people. I think that very much that struggle alone acted as a source of motivation as I got older.
Thank you. So the next question that we have is, what is your experience of dyspraxia at work?
Do you want to take this one with me?
Yeah, I did a lot of I tried out a lot of different types of jobs, and a lot of them I soon learned were a terrible fit for me. And I worried that I would never fit into the workforce at first. I did things like customer service and working in an amusement park and things like that. And it was very noisy. You were expected to talk to people a lot, even when you were stressed out and overwhelmed. And as you can imagine, that's not the most neurodivergent friendly thing. But as soon as I got into things around research and social media and marketing and working with not-for-profits, then I found that I was able to find a pace that worked for me. And that meant that that was really the first time I saw any kind of notion of work I could do. I do very, very well working on my own. That's a very important lesson I've learned. But I'm not a conventional, talk to people at guest service departments kind of person in terms of strengths. That's the most important lesson I've learned about dyspraxia in the context of work.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you as well. My experience of dyspraxia at work is really just like when I first started work, it was a lot to take in, a lot to do, quite a big change because, as I say, going to work and starting a new job is quite a big change for anyone as well. So my experiences were like I knew what I had to do. There were certain things that would actually worry me a bit. But I've always made a point of actually mentioning to an employer that I've got dyspraxia, and from doing that, then they understand, and they will ask how do you how do you cope with it, and is there anything we can do? And I'll just tell them that I just need that little bit of extra support. It takes me a bit longer, maybe than the average person, to learn a task or learn a job. But once I've got there, then I'm quite settled. I do, I can work on my own as well. But I also like working well as a team. And I think if you've got a good team behind you, then it just helps as well. A lot of people maybe don't, if I haven't told certain people, they might not know that I've got dyspraxia, but at the end of the day, if the support's there, then I think it's just really important, to follow that support and get that and actually explain, okay, this is what it is, because I think if you don't explain dyspraxia, in your workplace, and maybe you're a bit slower than the second person, then you've got more of a understanding if you do tell them that you have dyspraxia, and whether they can help out and obviously match up to that, which I'm very lucky to have at the moment. And if I do get stuck, then generally speaking, I know I can go to my support and they can help me out, so I can get that extra bit of guidance. Sometimes, it's easy for me at work to get a bit kind of paranoid in a way, thinking, have I done this right? Have I done it wrong or whatever? But as long as people know about my dyspraxia and know that, I care about what I do and I can get anxious and worried, then, they're very understanding of that. And I think that's important to tell people, particularly in the working environment.
Thank you. Rosemary, did you also want to talk about being self-employed and managing self-employment?
Yeah, it's really about having a routine, I find. I have been self-employed for around maybe 10 years now. And it's about developing a routine. It's about very carefully scheduling your week, knowing that certain days will be blocked for certain tasks. I have all kinds of digital systems to make sure that my short-term memory issues aren't a factor. Like I always set a lot of reminders. I use tools like Google Calendar. My mother is listening right now, and she's very much responsible for getting me into that. And it's been great because I never forget anything around meetings and deadlines and things like that. And I use tools that take the ambiguity as well out of booking meetings in order to make sure that people know what's expected. And although really in terms of disclosure and self-employment, it wasn't until much, much later in my self-employment journey that I felt comfortable disclosing to people. I read this book called Care Work, in which there's something called an access toolkit, where you can make up your own, in your own words, exactly what you need to feel supported and be accommodated in the context of anything that might be self-employment, whether that be speaking engagements or a one-time client project or whatever that might be. And I even found little tools like that, having that on my website, having that transparently expressed, make sure that there's a transparency between me and the client in terms of what I truly need to thrive.
Thank you. And our next question is a very similar question, but what is your experience of dyspraxia, but at home?
So I think my experiences of dyspraxia at home is I find like how can I put it? Like things like DIY and like hands-on things can be quite tricky for me. From like putting up a shelf. I'm a lot better at taking things down when I'm putting them up. But I do find that dyspraxia does make me, you know, make it a lot more difficult to actually, put shelves up. And I'm overthinking about things and thinking, oh, if I haven't like screwed something into a wall properly, is it going to then come down? Is there like electrical cables behind the wall and all that kind of thing. So maybe that's why I find those things difficult, but also generally because of angles. So I do suffer quite a lot with angles and so forth. So for instance, when you're screwing something into a wall with a screwing in fixtures and so forth like that, it's very hard for me to get it straight on. I always go in at a different angle and then it's not straight and all that kind of thing as well. Also, kind of like on the personal hygiene kind of way, things like brushing my teeth and so forth has caused an issue just with a standard toothbrush. So then I do use an electric toothbrush, which does help out obviously with the angles of things as well. And then my experience of dyspraxia at home as well is mainly to do with like if there's lots of forms to fill in or there's lots of paperwork or money, things like that. But I do have a very supportive wife who does help me out with those kind of things as well. And as I say, I do have a young boy as well. So my experience is probably with my dyspraxia sometimes don't go well with that because it's just like when my son says, "Why can't you do this?" or "Oh, surely you should be able to do this or do that," and I'm like, "Look, I'm dyspraxic, so I do find things a bit more difficult. You might have to show me a few more times before even he can tell me, how to do something." So my experiences of dyspraxia aren't always a negative one. It's quite positive. I've done, I like doing my fitness workouts. I like going out and riding my bike. I like playing my music. Some things that people with dyspraxia can't understand how I can do. But I believe that obviously dyspraxia, you have different levels of it as well. But yeah, my experiences are generally a positive one, but obviously there are little parts of that I do find difficult.
Yeah, I can very much relate to a lot of what you said, that not having a manual toothbrush is great. I found that when I switched to an electronic toothbrush, I felt that it was easier to clean and also be aware of how long I was taking, because then I don't, in terms of time blindness, my time blindness is quite intense. And then I at least have the cue of the noises of the brush to tell me that that routine has gone on for a certain amount of time. But I find with self-care tasks too, I just have to always plan for extra time, because I find if I rush it everything goes horribly wrong. And really to, especially since I was diagnosed with a thyroid condition too, and the intersection of the dyspraxia and the thyroid condition, is that with household stuff, I've really had to learn to look at it from a place of kindness, to be very transparent in terms of communicating with my husband as well. We rely very heavily on routines. We're a very routine heavy household. It helps he has type 1 diabetes. So whenever I hyper focus too much and I feel like I've gotten way too into a task, I always know that lunch will be at a certain time, breakfast will be at a certain time. And that really, really helps. And it's mixing up the switch from one task to another by using cues like music, giving myself the chance to take a break to listen to calm music or a podcast, or even go outside and go for a walk makes a big difference to break up the day. But other than that, like Mike, I'm married, so I find that a lot is just being transparent about what I need help with and how we can help each other.
Great. Thank you. Is there anything else that either of you wanted to add? Anything that you wanted to share that you haven't been able to through the questions?
I mean, I would probably just say that with dyspraxia, don't ever be afraid of asking for that help and that support, and don't ever be afraid of actually talking about the condition that you have, because it's not a bad thing. And as I mentioned earlier, it's all about getting that relative support, to help you through life. And so, yeah, don't be afraid to think, okay, I'm different to anybody else. I just thought that, at the end of the day, you are who you are. You're made how you're made, and I think you should thrive on who you are.
Yeah, it's easy to internalize a lot of shame because a lot of people just don't understand the condition itself. And some of us are bullied early on in their life. I know I was. I did a LinkedIn post today where I talked about how it wasn't too long ago I had my own feelings of shame about my dyspraxia and how it was a really big deal to get over that. And yeah, there's so much to be proud of. We're like, it makes us work harder, and that's amazing. It makes us feel like we really have to practice and work extra towards the things we really want to achieve. And that's really an extraordinary thing.
Great. Thank you. That's the end of the questions that I had. I thought maybe I could talk a bit about Dyspraxic Me again, because I know a few people joined after we did the introductions. And then I can stop recording, and then we can have a Q&A if people would like to ask questions. So if you want to start thinking about your questions and putting them in the chat, I can read them out for Rosemary and Mike. But yeah, Dyspraxic Me is a very small charity. It's like myself, Rosemary, and a couple of other people. And we're based in London, and we're a charity that supports dyspraxic young adults to transition from like school into adulthood by doing lots of regular activities. And at the moment, we have funding from Sports England to run fortnightly fitness classes. And at the moment, we've been doing spin in Covent Garden. So I'm just putting a link to that in the chat. So that's our website and our link to Eventbrite. And we're also completely volunteer run and rely on donations. So if anyone would feels happy to donate, we would appreciate any donations to help keep Dyspraxic Me going. And donations go towards things like running fitness classes or cooking classes or occupational therapy, and like just boring business costs like insurance. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'll stop recording now.